Hi, I'm Joe from Dark Arts Astrophotography, and welcome to our latest installment of tutorial videos. On today's episode, we'll be visiting the moon. No, not literally, but we'll be visiting pictures of the moon and going through the post-processing to get our final result. Now, the moon is a pretty easy to target to shoot overall. You don't need dark skies. You don't need clear sky. Well, you need clear as in no clouds, but you can shoot it under light pollution. It doesn't matter. You won't get any better results out in the country under dark skies than you will in living downtown somewhere if you're able to take shots of it. It's pretty simple process. You can shoot it with, camera and telescope, or just a camera with a zoom lens. Your best results will always be a DSLR with a zoom lens, but you can shoot the moon with pretty much any camera. A tripod is necessary, of course, to get the good results, but generally speaking, any camera will do. However, if you want to do the serious job, you'll need a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. And ideally with at least a 200mm zoom lens if you want to start getting some real detail, preferably a 300mm or even higher if you can do it. In my case, I love to shoot the moon with a crop sensor Nikon and a 300mm lens, which gives me a 450mm equivalent, which gets me in quite close to the moon, actually. Almost as much as shooting it through my Explorer Scientific ED80. But you can shoot it with anything. And the post-processing techniques that I'll be showing you apply equally to shots shot with a telescope or shots done with a camera and lens. Naturally, if you zoom in closer to the moon with a telescope, you're going to pick up a lot more of the fine details than you would with just a camera and zoom lens. But the process of doing things is exactly the same. The pictures we're going to work on today, I shot with my 8-inch Meade LX90 Schmidt-Cassegrain using a 0.63 focal reducer, and I used my Nikon D750 full-frame camera. I believe I have about 1,500 images that I took over a span of, maybe a half hour or so. We'll go through the process of pre-processing in PIP, the planetary image preprocessor. That's why they just call it PIP. We'll go through the process of stacking, and then we'll go through the process of sharpening, and then the final corrections in Photoshop to bring out the final photo. So with all that said, it's time to get to the actual processing. Okay, so here we are at my computer, and I've got my files here on my desktop in this folder. I've got a total of 1,503 images, as you can see. Let's see, bring that up. Pretty good images overall. Nice fine detail on the moon. And I've got 103 dark frames. So let's check some of the later ones here that were later in the night. Okay, they've all got a yellowish tinge to them, which is fine. Excellent, excellent. So, our first step is to start with the planetary image preprocessor. Finally, I got it that time. PIP. This will get our files ready for our final processing. So, very easy to use overall. Select all your files, unselect the darks because you don't want those here, and drag them into PIP. A text box has popped up saying join mode has been selected because you're using images. That's perfectly fine. That's normal. That's actually what you want anyway. So it's processing, and there we go. It's loaded up all the images. Now you go to your dark frames tab, select all of these, drag them in. Now these are optional, but I like snapping about, when I do moon images, I like snapping about 100 of them. It just ends up with clearer images. The dark frames will help with noise, and they help with the with any hot pixels you might have on your sensor. So okay, now we've got all our images imported. It's time to go and select this solar lunar full disk, which is pretty obvious. So, oh, also here's on my other monitor. Pip also pops open this little window on the size. Tells you your frame size, 6032 by 4032. This is a 24 megapixel camera. We'll be trimming this down pretty drastically. I'm guessing probably about, we'll be cropping to about 2000 by 2000. So about a 4 megapixel image. So, time to get into our settings here for Pip. This is really not very, very complicated. You go to your input options, enable hot pixel filter. See what else we have here. Raw camera. Usually most of the default settings are pretty good. Input frame color monochrome. I'll go color debayer. Oh, there we go. Debayer monochrome frames. Next, go to your processing options. I don't generally mess with the input gain and gamma correction. Noise filter, that's only for monochrome raw color. Might as well. Convert color to monochrome. No, you don't want that. You'd like to get a nice color image of the moon. So, stretch white point to 75%. Set histogram black point to 0. Equalize RGB channels individually. That's good. We don't need any rotation. I mean, if you're shooting through certain telescopes where you're upside down or backwards or something, you might want to do some XY flipping, but in this case here, we're not going to do it because this is the correct orientation as we see the moon. Okay, frame stabilization, planetary, object and planetary, that actually came from selecting this. So you don't really have to mess with that. Enable object detection. Yep, of course. Object detection threshold. Usually auto works fine. I generally leave it there. I can only think of a couple of times I've ever had to mess with that, and that was when I was doing planets. So center object in each frame, you want that. Edge shadow. This one's on the left, so you'll go and left hand side. So you just pick whatever option applies to you in this case. Enable cropping. I'm going to try 2000, oops, tabbed one too far, by 2000 and see what gives. So you see now I can hit this test options and I'll see the result of these settings I made in here in this window. So it's processing. This is going to take a bit. Processing, processing, processing. Oh, there we go. Yeah, 2000 by 2000 is perfect. I could probably reduce this a little bit, but I'm not going to. I think 2000 by 2000 is good. Quality options. Keep only the best quality frames. I've got 1500. I'm going to say let's keep the best 1000. That's what we'll stack at the end, will be 1000 frames. Everything else stays the same. Total brightness algorithm is usually the best for moon images. Default pip quality, well, the other ones are better for planetary and smaller objects. For the moon, the total brightness algorithm is awesome. So animation options, you don't need to mess with anything here. Output format. TIFF is what I'm going for. I mean, you could do FITS if you wanted to. If you work with FITS and other software, that's great. PNG is acceptable as well. Serial files, that's a valid option as well. I wouldn't do a BMP or an animated GIF, not for lunar images though. So, and finally, all you've got to do is go to do your processing. You just go in there, click start, and let it do its thing. Warning, this is going to take a while. I mean, I'm running a, reasonably fast system, an i7 4770, 4 cores, 8 threads, 32 gigs of RAM. I'm running off an SSD, and despite that, this is going to take a while. So right now you see it's stacking 103 dark frames. It will stack those frames, then it will go through all 1500 of those images and apply the dark frame subtraction to every single one of them. Then it goes through each one, applies all the settings that you've put in here, and then the final is that it sorts them by quality from the best to the worst, and it will spit them out in a new folder. If you see right here, oh, it hasn't created the new folder yet. Oh, I guess it has to. It'll only create it after it's finished stacking the dark frames, but it will create a folder called pip with a timestamp code on it, and it will place it in this folder, which we'll probably see in a couple of seconds here. So it goes through it. There we go. Pip 2017-0609, which is today's date, and 2159, which is the current time when the job was started. And eventually it will be all put in here. So now, as you can see, this is going to take a while, so I'm going to stop the video for right now and let it do its thing, and I'll come back when it's complete. And we are back. It is now 55 minutes later. This took a while. Now, I guess for this tutorial I could have just taken like a couple of hundred pictures or something and made it a lot easier, but I decided to go for the gusto and end up with a really good final result. In this case here, we've got, you know, a lot of frames, and considering that they're from a 24 megapixel camera, that kind of data is going to take a while to crunch. But anyway, we're done. So in this folder that Pip created, you have 2 folders. One is all your final images. It has sorted them by quality and put the percentage of the quality at the end of the file name. So you go right to the end here. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Didn't mean to anchor it. Okay, full screen. 98.12%. So I could have probably taken more than 1,000 of these pictures for my final, but that's good. That means I've really picked nothing but the best of the best. So, and let's take a look at what they actually look like. Oh, it's opening up in Photoshop. Oh, that's good enough. That works for me. You can see it is a little bit noisy as you go in, even though that these were shot at, let's go check what the settings were. You know, ISO 400, 1/400th of a second, and there's still some noise to be seen on there. But that's the nature of digital cameras, so the stacking is going to get rid of this. So here we have 1,000 items, all our best of our best pictures. Now I'm going to open AutoStacker. This is what I use for stacking. Now this is a completely free piece of software. It opened up on my other monitor. This completely free piece of software, just look up AutoStacker online. I'm using a beta version. It is a beta version of their 64-bit version. The 32-bit version's been available for years, but this is fairly new. This latest beta is from March 2017, so that's like, what, 3-4 months ago? So, yeah. So 32-bit means it actually uses the memory on my computer. It actually uses my processor cores fully rather than 32-bit, so it tends to be a lot faster than the 32-bit version. So here we go. So I'm going to select all my images and just go drop them in AutoStacker. Minimize this, and here we go. So now, AutoStacker, again, it looks a little daunting at first, but really it's pretty straightforward. Most of its work has been done. Your image has been cropped nicely, all your frames have been centered and aligned, you've already removed you know, the bad frames. I mean, in this case, there weren't any bad frames really, but it was pretty close to centering in most cases. So, here we go. So, image stabilization. Planet, a cog, or a surface. In this case, we have a lot of surface detail visible, so I think I'm going to try this. I'm not sure which one would actually work best in this case. Zoom out. Okay. So, I'll zoom out, make it 50% so it fits my screen. That's good. So, control click to set. I'll try maybe down here where there's a lot of surface detail, a lot of cratering. So, improve tracking. What does that do? Slower but more accurate tracking, especially for jumping recordings. Well, my recording's not jumpy because it's already been centered in PIP. So, I'm going to click Analyze. So it's going to go through and analyze my images. This is going to take a bit, but it's not too bad. The real long part about this is what we just did. The stacking, or the pre-processing in PIP. That's the part that takes a really long time, but it's really, really worth it. Now, I could have dumped my 1500 pictures into AutoStacker directly, told it to do 2000 by 2000, it would have centered the object, but I find that when I do full disk images of the moon, I've often had it stack incorrectly, where I've had a few frames that were kind of off, and it ends up giving me a blurry edge or something to the moon in the final image, and I didn't really like that. But yeah, so I since I've been doing the pre-processing, I haven't had this issue, so I'm not sure exactly what caused it, but this seems to have fixed it. Also, I should mention, Registax 6, which I have over here, is another perfectly fine program for stacking. We're going to be using this one later to do the wavelet sharpening, but I think that I prefer stacking in AutoStacker. I tell you honestly, I've had better results with it, and it handles larger files a lot better. When I'm doing small files, I don't find that there's a whole lot of difference. Like if I'm doing planetary or small moon images where there's something like that's 1 to 2 megapixel in size source images, Registax does fine. But when I start playing with large images like this, it's extremely slow. Often it will crash part ways through, and that's because this is an old piece of software. I mean, it's multi-CPU aware. It'll use all my cores, but it's only 32-bit, so it's limited to 3.5 gigs of RAM. So when you're trying to play with a bunch of large images that are each, let's see, how big are these TIFF files? I mean, you're looking at TIFFs that are 22.8 megabytes each. So and to think here, you're loading 1,000 of them into a 32-bit program. It can be a little bit problematic. So I can see why it would crash at times doing this. Okay, so it's still going through its processing. So I'm going to pause this video. We'll let it finish its thing here. This can take a couple of minutes, and I will be back. We're done with the processing stage, the initial processing stage of AutoStacker. It's finally gone through and analyzed everything. Now what we need to do is place these alignment points on the image. So you just click here,
And, oh, it's found a lot. That's a big, big picture. That's a lot of alignment points. Wow. 13,221. I've got small alignment points. Let's see. I'm going to go for a few less here because that's going to take forever to stack with that many alignment points. 48's a good number. So, once you're done with this, this is the big work done in PIP. Or, sorry, in AutoStacker. I was reading PIP over here. I'm going to shut it down because we're done with the pre-processing. Now it's time to actually do the final stacking. Now that you have all your alignment points. Now, stack options. Obviously, you have your different file formats, TIFF, PNG, and FITS. TIFF is the default ones. Uncompressed TIFF, as you can see also. And that's the best for me. I like playing with my TIFFs. Now, the number of frames to stack. You can do multiples if you want to see what your results are. You can use either the number of frames. In this case, I have 1,000. I could do 1,000. I could do a stack with 800, a stack with 500, a stack with 200. Or I could do 100%, 80%, 50%, 20%. I'm going to go for 100%. So that's going to be good. So 100% of my frames. Oh, you can do a mix and match of both too if you want to do it by actual numbers, but okay. Sharpened. Oh, this is a new. Okay, no. I don't want to just save the sharpened images. I just want the output. We'll do the sharpening afterwards ourselves. So RGB align, yes. Save in folders, yes. Stack name. You can do whatever you want. Drizzle, I usually keep it off. So, as you can see the instructions, 1.5 times only for undersampled images. And set to 300%, or I don't bother with that. So I'm just going to leave it at its regular size. It'll produce a final 2000 by 2000 image. If I want by some means to grow it, I can resample it a little bit and give it maybe a 25 to 50% increase in Photoshop, but 2000 by 2000 is a good picture size for this. So I will stack it now. This is actually surprisingly a quicker process than the pre-process or the early processing is. It goes through this quite quickly. Image alignment. So as you can see, this isn't too bad compared to waiting for PIP. Even the initial stages of processing where I paused the video was literally maybe about 3 to 4 minutes. So it wasn't really a lot of time, but I didn't want dead time in this video for nothing, so I just kept it as is. Or rather, I just, paused it to not bore you guys to death. And to try to find something to say. And actually, I think I'm doing that now. So, okay, I'm actually going to stop this and let it do its thing. This will take probably, at the speed it's going right now, probably 3 or 4 minutes. We'll see. It's now 11:15 my time. I'll come back as soon as it's done and we'll see where it's at. So AutoStacker has now finished its job. It took 6 minutes to do, which is not too bad. So let's minimize this and let's go see where our images are. Back in our folder, under PIP, see, AutoStacker, P100 being 100%. So if you choose 50% as your ratio, well, it would be P50. And it'll show you what your image looks like. So let's open this up. So opened it up to Photoshop. Let's see if we can get roughly about the same zoom factor as the other. Roughly. Well, let's just zoom right in and see what we've got here. So we're roughly the same spot on the moon at roughly the same zoom factor, 276 or 353. This is the original. Now, as we're zooming in here, you start seeing that there's a lot of blotching and a lot of noise in here. Now, let's look at the stacked version of the image. Oop. I'm going to undo that. I'm not even sure what I did. That was so quick. Let's try to find the same spot. Here we go. Somewhere around there. You can see where we've got all this blotching. Here, it's smoothed out very, very significantly compared to the other one. So that's what stacking can do to remove your noise from your picture. So now we're not going to work on it in Photoshop. We're going to go to Registax and actually do the sharpening. Here, I'm actually going to bring back Photoshop for a second, and I'm just going to close this out so that the file's not open at multiple places at once. And we have Registax. Registax, unfortunately, doesn't work Oh, it does work drag and drop. Oh yeah, it's with videos you can't drag and drop. Pictures will drag and drop just fine. So okay, let's full screen this and show full image. This is kind of opposite because normally you've got small images that you want to full screen. In this case, we have a large image that's bigger than full screen. Actually, let's go close up like that so that we can really see the effects of our stacking, of our wavelet sharpening. Oh, I want Gaussian for my sharpening. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is bring up the histogram. Now, again, it's opening on my other monitor. I like to go to the log-based graph. And I can bring things up here somewhat, about to here. And then hit stretch. That will, oh great, picked a spot down here to be the sample point that it works on. Oh well, that's okay. Bring up the gamma window. And I'm going to put a point in here and try to mess with this a little bit to bring up some good contrast. Kind of like that down here, like that. You can see it's a little bit darker, but you're seeing the shadows so much better. Okay. Next, we bring up the RGB align and hit the estimate. This is going to take a couple of seconds here with a... Oh, well, actually, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. That was quick. Okay, let's shut these down. And let's go to the RGB balance. Yeah, this is the one that takes a little bit longer. Auto balance. Wow, it's really, really fast. Normally this tends to take a while. Okay. I guess I was all wrong. So, okay, now we've got this area here. Now we're going to start with our wavelet sharpening. Your initial layer of 1 is the default settings. I don't think I have any... No, I don't. I have nothing for the moon in here. I like to start with the large wavelets first and see the effects. If I don't get enough of an effect, obviously here it's working quite well. As you can see how much that is sharpened up. I will often go to, if it doesn't have very much of a visual effect, I bump it up to the next level. Obviously here it's way too much, so it's not good. But yeah, wow, that's really, really nice. You can see the before and after here is pretty drastic. So, I'm going to bring this back down. And I'm going to start with some small wavelets. Bring out this, because we have a lot of very, very fine detail on the moon here. See? I wonder what happens if I do this. Okay, it's still only using this small bottom area. Unfortunately, this is very old and abandoned software, so while it works great, it's lacking a lot of features. Okay. You don't... So, yeah, so things like being able to move around and all that, yeah, it is non-existent. I will show you another method of doing it afterwards, but for now we'll do this because this is the free method that anybody with a Windows computer can do. So, okay, as you can see, as we bring up the sharpening, things that the white spots really start to stand out. The key here is to try to find a nice balance where you're bringing up the wavelets, but without blowing them out like they are here. Like this is way, way, way too sharp. This looks unrealistic. This is almost cartoonish at this point. So, I'm thinking somewhere around this range here, about 35-ish, is good for the finer details. Yeah, that's pretty good. So now I'm going to move up to the next level, slightly larger wavelets. Again, I don't want to overdo it. Boy, that's some really, really nice detail we've got in here. So, okay, the next. So again, as you start, you can see the effect that each wavelet has just by sliding it fully. Say that's probably okay. Let's see what features this one affects. The slightly larger features. Oops, I didn't grab it. Okay, I'm going to try something else. This is a lot of experimentation at this point, but just going with the large wavelets, giving the large ones a really nice boost. It's going to be a little too much there. Okay, that looks pretty slick actually. I'm going to go with the second largest, bring those up a touch. I think the combined effect is kind of heavy-handed. Yeah, that looks really, really, really good. I'm really liking this detail in here. A little bit more. I find that what I usually end up with is a subsequently less pattern. Sometimes it's heavier into the small wavelets and less into the high wavelets, and sometimes it's the other way around. It looks like in this case it's going to be the other way around. See, if I bring this up now, it's just going to blow everything to pieces. That actually looks pretty good, but I'm going to tweak everything down a little bit as it seems to be a little bit too sharpened. And I don't know, but I think that that looks really, really, really excellent here. So, I am going to do all, and it will apply all the effects that I've done here to the entire image. And we'll see what our results are. Look at that, don't you? What the heck just happened? Oh, there we go. It's back. Look at that. That is a beautiful, beautiful moon. Now let's see the histogram. Log based. Okay, well, I'm going to do final adjustment on this in Photoshop after anyway. So now it's a matter of saving the image. So I'm just going to call it sharpened RS6, Registax 6. And we'll go to our folder, open it up in Photoshop. And wow, that looks really... Let's see if the auto tone... Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's just gorgeous. Look at that. You can even see Rupus recta right here. This giant line, which is a giant rill, which is a split basically in the ground on the surface of the moon. Wow, that's really incredible. So now let's see. Let's bring up my levels control. Maybe I can brighten things up a little bit more here. I don't want to brighten too much. Just a little bit. I'm going to bring up my curves so that I can actually put this here as an anchor. I'm using my... I'm going to go at 2020 as an anchor point, because there you see there are no blacks underneath that. I'm going to go and anchor that like this, and bring up the moon like this. That looks really, really, really awesome. And I'm actually not going to do... There are other methods that you can use to sharpen within Photoshop by using high-pass filters, but I don't think this is necessary. There's so much fine detail that's visible for this resolution right now that I don't think any further sharpening is actually required. So let's go filter, camera raw filter. And watch, it's going to pop open my other monitor. Of course it does. Let's bring it over here. Like, wow, that looks really, really good. Let's just try for the hell of it, see what auto. That kind of brings back the original color that it had. Because remember that it had kind of an orangish glow. So let's see. You can go into the noise reduction. There's very, very, very little noise, so I wouldn't go too heavy on noise reduction for this. Very light luminance, and maybe add some color noise reduction to... I don't know if how well you can notice in the video, but there's like a little bit of color blotching. This will help smooth it out a bit. You can usually go pretty heavy on color noise reduction as compared to luminance. Luminance will really wash out your details. So I'm really liking this. Maybe give it a little bit of sharpening here. 1 pixel radius, which shouldn't be too much. 25, 30-ish. It doesn't make a huge, huge difference, but just a little bit. Fit in view. Perfect. This looks really, really, really nice. So I'm going to try, let's zoom in a little bit here, bumping up the clarity just a touch. See, too much just blows things out completely, but just a couple of points up helps. Maybe increase the vibrance somewhat. Oh yeah, that brings it back to its original color almost. A little too much for me. Saturation up just a tad to bring some color back to it. I'm going to bring my blacks down somewhat because I do want a nice black background. But I want to bring out some of these shadows that are hidden away here. So I'm going to raise my shadows a little bit. You can see if you raise them all the way how much more you can see. But you don't want to raise too much. That's nice. I'm going to bring down the whites a little bit to try to... Let's see if there's any blowouts anywhere. I got a little bit of hot pixelation there, so I'm going to bring down the whites just a touch. Maybe the highlights too, to try to get rid of that. Yeah, that's good. Maybe increase my contrast a little bit. And I don't know, I think that's... I mean, you could go into the HSL here and mess with some colors a little bit too, like, you know, saturate. But I think that this is a pretty good picture of the moon. And this is something, like I said, everybody can do. You can follow these steps along. Unfortunately, Registax and AutoStacker are only available on Windows, so unfortunately you Mac guys are kind of boned on this one. But yeah, this is really, really nice. Now, I will show you another way of doing this. It requires more processing in Photoshop, but it's using, so where is it? The original here. Let's open this up. This requires an actual paid plugin called Astra Image. 64-bit. It's $42 US. It's a beautiful image. It allows you to do as well wavelet sharpening right in Windows, like we just did in Registax. Fortunately, you have to look through this window to see your results. They're not live. But you can see, you know, before and after just from cranking the large wavelets. Very large. I'm just going to do something very quick here to show you the results that you can get out of it. Before and after. Obviously this is a little heavy-handed, so not the best way to do it. But that's not what I use. Okay, I'm going to start first by bringing up my levels and bringing the brightness of the moon back a little bit here because it was way, way, way too dark in the original. And that's nice. Let me see if I do an auto tone. Let's see what happens. Nah. Sometimes you get lucky with auto tone and auto contrast, auto color. It'll come up with something really, really good. But you know, I give it a try. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, it doesn't. And no big deal really. So I'm going to bring up my curves, which is Control M. And it was Control L for levels, by the way. I'm just used to the keyboard shortcuts, so. Okay, this one here, I don't really have a black. My histogram is full length, so I'm going to still put an anchor point here at 2020. With my arrow keys, I can do that. Another anchor point underneath, because I don't want to affect the blacks. I only want my stretching to affect the lighter areas. So I'm going to bring this up. And then, so that I don't blow out the whites, I'm going to bring the top end of the curve down. Yeah, it looks like I may have a little blowout here, but that's not too bad. Okay, the plugin I use, Astra Image, has several different functions. The one that I use is the deconvolution for sharpening. Deconvolution is really the thing that you want to do to an image like this. Okay, let's see the details. Let's go to Lucy Richardson, which is the best deconvolution filter that they have, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so before and after, it's very, very slight detail, not much. I like to crank the deconvolution strength all the way up to 10, if I can grab the slider. Preview, let's see what it does. Okay, you can see this is way, way, way too much. But this gives me an idea of what my blur kernel size needs to be. So now I'm going to lower it, let's say about 0.7. Preview and see what that gives me. Before and after. Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice. You can see all these fine details in the craters. Let's try to lower it to 0.5 and see what happens. Before and after. See, the effect is far less pronounced, so I think 0.6, let's see. Before and after. That, yeah, 0.6 I think is kind of the magic spot. So I'm going to lower the deconvolution strength down to 5. I'm using my mouse wheel here, by the way. So yeah, before and after. Let's see, maybe make it a little bit bigger. This is a lot of experimentation, so my numbers here mean nothing to you, other than the testing with the high deconvolution strength to start with. It really means nothing. Oh yeah, I'm really liking this. Usually deconvolution strength, I do the final at around 5, but again, it's very, very dependent on what picture I'm doing. So I think I'm going to go with this. I think for the purpose of this video, this will be good enough of a demonstration. So now I apply it. This could take a while. This will be dependent on the size of your image, obviously. You know, how fast your computer is. Mine is fairly fast, so something this size won't take that long. We go 5 of 10, 6 of 10. So you see, this is a pretty quick process altogether. But considering how much time we spent in Registax trying to do sharpening, how quick it was to get a very, very sharp image in with deconvolution instead. So now let's go see the Apennine Mountains. Those look really good, and let's go see them here. So here we have the sharpened with wavelets and Registax, and here we have the deconvoluted. I don't know, but that looks... I'm liking this one even better. Which is why I tend to use Astra Image. So, now at this point, it becomes just like the other image. Camera raw filter. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Oh no, Photoshop crashed. Oh, that's no fun. Photoshop just crashed on me. Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. Yeah, since the last Creative Cloud update, it seems to clash a lot with my video card driver for some reason. Anyway, oh, there's my tools, let's open the, oh, it recovered. Oh no, that's the sharpened one. So okay, we'll do this again quickly. Actually, you know what? I think that this kind of covers it off here. If you really look at it, you've seen both techniques. Personally, I like Astra Image better, but this is completely valid. I mean, I could have probably spent a little bit more time tweaking the wavelets, maybe been a little less aggressive at some areas on it, at some of the wavelengths, but overall, you end up with a very, very nice picture of the moon.
So, I hope you found this video informative and helpful to you. And if you have any questions or comments, please post down in the comments below. If you liked the video, then please hit that button, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, well, I guess you know what to do. But the thumbs up really helps the channel. If you want to see more videos like this, then by all means, hit that subscribe button too, and you will know when I have new videos out. So, you can visit my website and my blog, where I have lots of helpful blogs, at darkartsastro.ca, or you can check out my Facebook page or my Instagram. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, keep those lenses and eyes pointed up.